Hey everyone, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu. I've got a seminar for you. A lot of you have been asking where or how can you learn from Kama Jiu-Jitsu? Well, you can go to one of our seminars, and the next one happens to be Saturday, November 11th. It's coming up quick. It's going to be over at Delaware Jiu-Jitsu, which is actually in Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania, and it's run by Professor Joe Goldberg. Give him a call and reserve your spot. It's not a big studio, it's not a big venue. It's going to run out quick. It's the third or fourth time Professor Dave will be there teaching. So I guarantee you're going to love this one. You're going to learn the invisible jiu-jitsu that we do here at Kama Jiu-Jitsu. But anyway, give Professor Joel a call and we'll get it started for you. Take care. Bye-bye. Hey everyone, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu. We all know, all us guys who train jiu-jitsu, we know that women in jiu-jitsu is a pretty rare thing. That's not to mean that a lot of schools don't have a lot of women training there. But as a percentage, the amount of women that train actively in jiu-jitsu is a small percentage. Why that is, I kind of know, but at the same time, I wish it were not the case. Because in our view here at Kama Jiu-Jitsu, self-defense is everything. And the people who, in our opinion, could benefit the most from self-defense are women and children. Mostly because they tend to be smaller than their cowardly attackers. It makes sense for them to have some tools in their arsenal to be able to even the score some, and even to tilt the odds in their favor. And that's where Kama Jiu-Jitsu and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, which Kama Jiu-Jitsu is, has always worked. So sitting next to me here is one of our blue belt junior instructors. Her name is Jenny Mitchel. She was over at another neighborhood martial arts school, and she can kind of tell you about that as well. But I got an email from her husband, I guess done his due diligence on Kama Jiu-Jitsu prior to contacting me and wanting to have his wife come and start training with us. Let me kind of introduce you to Ginny and ask Ginny to, I guess, complete the story and how you ended up coming to us and why.
I've always been interested in martial arts. Kind of got a little taste of jiu-jitsu at the martial arts studio that I was at before, but you know, it was kind of a white belt teaching people that had, you know, no experience whatsoever. But anyway, my husband knew that I was, you know, really liking it and wanted me to learn, and so yeah, he did some research and found Kama Jiu-Jitsu, and I guess the rest is history.
Now, when you came to me, I don't know if I can throw you enough of a hint to get the answer I'm looking for, but when you came to me and I asked you why you wanted to learn jiu-jitsu in particular, what did you tell me?
I remember I said I really respected the art, and I wanted to learn, and I wanted to be good at it. But
how good did you want to be? Good enough to do what?
Well, to defend myself, but I also wanted to learn. I wanted to be good enough to get in the cage and fight MMA. Yep, that's what I wanted to do.
And I think I told you I can prepare you for that. Mm-hmm. That's not a problem. But it really kind of threw me for a loop that probably the first woman who stepped foot in our studio as a student, not just as a let me try out this women's self-defense thing, but as a student, had as her goal to be a butt kicker.
Yeah.
And and you'd never guess it looking at her. When she said that to me, I kind of thought she was joking. But then I learned that she does joke around, but I don't think she was joking about that.
No, I mean, it's on my bucket list, maybe someday.
And this is a mother of two, by the way. And you might see on our Facebook page some pictures of her doing some pretty good, extraordinary physical feats. For instance, we do what we call partner sit-ups, but she is acting as the base for a 250-pound partner that we have. And it's a pretty cool photo of her being able to base for him and hold him up while he does sit-ups. So far, what's been your experience? Because you've been with us for 2.5 years now, and you stuck with it. You know, it's hard enough keeping males in the school long enough to earn a blue belt. But you're not only one of our blue belts, you're also in our instructor training program, and you actively teach classes. So tell us about that experience so far.
I just loved what I was learning so much. The self-defense, I mean, I'm a lot more confident now that if something were to happen, God forbid, I could handle myself a lot better and also protect my children. The other huge factor, I got to brag on the Kama Jiu-Jitsu gentlemen. They have been gentlemen, very, very good to work with, regardless of belt ranking, any of that. They've been wonderful teachers. but also as an instructor, they've listened well, so that's made my experience really good. But I think for me personally, again, I loved what I was learning. I loved the intensity of it. It's physically more demanding than anything I've ever done in my life, but also the mental aspect of it is incredibly demanding, but you never stop learning, and that it's very intriguing to me, and it makes me not ever want to stop doing it.
So one of the things we've had an uphill battle with at Kama Jiu-Jitsu, and you're well aware of it because we're grooming you to run such classes. It's attracting and keeping women in the studio. We've had a number of events, both here in Texas and in California, where we've attracted women to our classes, really as like a self-defense thing, as kind of your door opener to show them what you can start off with, but eventually to go where we're going to end up with regard to jiu-jitsu. What do you think has been one of the biggest barriers for women coming in and staying here the way you have?
I think there's a lot of factors. I think first of all, demographically, it's hard to feel like you need to learn self-defense when you feel so safe every day. Even though I think a lot of times that's an illusion. You could be in the safest town in the world and somebody could still jump you. And so, but I think a lot of people, women especially, just live under that illusion that, I will never need to learn to defend myself. I think so that's one of the barriers for sure. Another barrier too is it's hard to come in to a class that's all men and that's grappling. A lot of women don't want to get into that. Thankfully, when I very first started, there was a couple of other girls. They didn't end up sticking with it, but at least there were a few other females in the class when I first started. Hopefully, if more women come, hopefully I can be kind of that friendly face that encourages them to keep coming. I think there's just people get intimidated easily, especially if you have to, try to muscle around, great big guy, even though that's not what we're doing, it kind of looks like that. So I think a lot of times if people can stay long enough to kind of get that basic groundwork and understand what we're trying to teach, it tends to improve the longevity of your stay with jiu-jitsu.
For your situation, if the high school girls weren't here in class at that time, do you think you would have stayed anyway, or do you think you might have left just as they did?
I grew up with a brother and a sister, but my brother and I, we played all sports together. That's kind of how I grew up, so I didn't really mind having to learn with men, so I probably still would have stayed. But the first couple times, it made me a little more comfortable. So also, as I learned and grew, I went to the group classes, but I also took some one-on-one sessions with Ryan, and that helped me really understand kind of what my trajectory was. Once he kind of knew what some of my goals were going through the ladder, and I didn't see it at the time, but looking back, I kind of understand like the way he taught me, like he didn't let people just smash me and beat up on me, and I greatly appreciate that, because I think with any student, man or woman, you have to be careful and kind of see where they're at mentally. Every single one of the people that I would train with that taught me understood that, be careful at first, and then as she learns, as she gets better, turn up the heat a little bit, make it harder and make it harder and make it harder. And so I think that that helped me personally, because I think if I would have gotten beat up every single day the first several months, it would have been hard to stick with it. So I greatly appreciate just, the process of learning that I went through. And also knowing that, every single class we learned something for self-defense. And every single class that I was in, Ryan or whoever was instructing was able to point to, okay, if you're a woman and you're in this situation, you can use this. So it was very applicable. It was very practical knowledge that I was learning. The
treatment that she got, I would say, is not any different than any other new student. I didn't have a ton of experience teaching a lot of women, especially in group class, because if it's just one-on-one, then it's easy for me to moderate the pressure and the speed and all those types of things and tailor it to your needs. But in a group class where you have a lot of individuals there, it's not quite as easy. I especially spent a lot of my attention making sure that you were okay, but not that you were comfortable, because it's not about being comfortable in jiu-jitsu. It's about being able to get out of uncomfortable situations. But at the same time, to your credit, not once did you ever complain about being smashed or anything. What would kind of scare me at first was, everybody has a face that they make when they do something. Her jiu-jitsu face sometimes looks like she's in distress, so I'd always stop. Are you okay? She's like, yeah, like, what are you looking at? I'm just training. It's almost like a leave me alone. And I'm like, okay, but it might have been 5-6 times before I finally realized that's her intense face. That's her face when she's trying to kill you. But once I understood that about her, then it was okay. I would feel more comfortable kind of letting her go a little bit and letting her determine where she's had enough. One thing that I like about all my students, especially, there's an old saying that I heard about Carson Gracie Sr., Carlos Sr.'s oldest son. And what he would do is he would have his classes, and he would have big classes. He was the first to do really big group classes because he brought in a lot of the poor kids from the favelas to teach them. He wouldn't charge them. But what he would do is he would kind of break his kids up, not by economic class, but by heart. And the ones that had a lot of heart, he would put them on one side of the mat and let them train with each other. And the other group, believe it or not, he called the chickens. And he would put them in another group. Those are the ones that at the smallest amount of discomfort, they go, ow, stop. Whereas the other ones, he would just let them just go at it and just let them basically fight each other. And maybe he'd have to break them up, I don't know. But Ginny is one of those who is of that tough group. Tell them about the conversations you and I would have. So I have another instructor who's also blue belt, been around a little longer than her, much larger than her, but when he trains with her, gives her no space whatsoever. And she'd come in for a private after one particularly trying session. It was about you getting smashed by one particular individual. And during the private, oftentimes, and by doing weekly privates, which she did, oftentimes it would be the group classes happen during the week, and then when the private comes up, we kind of go over things that didn't go the way she wanted to in the group class, and we plug those holes so she can then work with her new self for the next week. And we do that every single week. So one of my other junior instructors plays pretty aggressively, plays very heavy. Our style here at Kama Jiu-Jitsu is a very heavy pressure game, and would never give her any space. Didn't care that she's a girl. I think is good, because what it does is it gives her credit for her abilities, where he doesn't want to give her that tiny space, because if he does, she's going to take his back and choke him out. And her chokes, and he admits her chokes are pretty brutal. They're not fun to be part of. How many guys have you put to sleep?
I think maybe 2.
2,
But
yeah. Not intentionally. It's just the chokes come so quick and so hard that whoever is her partner training, and granted, she's the only woman in our studio, so what does that tell you about her victims, right? But the chokes come so hard and so quick that they pass out. This particular individual, he doesn't want to be choked by her. In fact, there was one day we were practicing chokes, and after 2 or 3 times, he said, all right, I'm done, you go choke somebody else. But she had come to her private saying, I want you to teach me how to beat so-and-so. Okay, well, he's a lot bigger than you. And what'd you say?
I said, so?
And he's been training a little longer than you.
So?
Well, he's a lot stronger than you.
So?
So you see her mentality, right? It's, I don't care about anything. I don't care that he's a man. I don't care that he's bigger. I don't care that he's been training longer. I want to beat him. Now, that is something that is very rare in a man, let alone a woman. I mean, just as an individual, it's a tough thing for an instructor to find. I think I was one of those starting up. I would fight anybody. I didn't care. And if I get my butt kicked, I'd come back to the class next time and I'd go after you. That's just the way I am. And Ginny is just like that. Part of the reason why she's been around for so long is because that type of never say die, never quit attitude does extremely well in jiu-jitsu. Having taught a lot of people over the years, that is not something that I can come across a lot. And I could have a woman come in who's been an athlete. I could have a man who's been an athlete. Just athlete their whole lives. Come into jiu-jitsu and get humbled and not be able to bounce back from that. It does help that, if you're a small guy or if you're a woman, I think it's easier to come from there because there's nowhere, you were never high up on the ladder. You were never high up to get taken down so far. You were already on the bottom. You're always living a life of potential attacks. I can't really say from a woman's point of view, but from a guy's point of view, everybody is bigger than me. And if anybody wants to attack me, they can, and they could probably feel pretty confident that they do okay. But it may not turn out that way. But they look at me and they go, oh yeah, he's just a little guy. When I first came to jiu-jitsu and I got beat, to me it was, so what's new? I get beat by everybody. As time went on, I would just take people out one by one, to the point where I would start to progress. I don't know if that's something you're feeling as well when you see new people coming in, and they're all men. I don't know if you have any of that kind of feeling going through you.
Ryan teaches this to everyone, but the formula for jiu-jitsu is physicality and technique. Obviously my physicality is a lot lower than pretty much everybody else's in class, so I got to make up for that with technique, which can be difficult. I eat humble pie every time I go to class, every time, and that makes me a better person, though, truly. So, there are white belts that, they're thinking, I want to beat the blue belts. I'm the only girl, so I'm, of course, their first target because I'm probably the easiest target.
So they think.
Yeah, and so I at least try to, inflict a little bit of discomfort on them. But I do get beat by white belts, and I have to learn to be okay with that because as my technique gets better and better, it'll make up for some of the size difference. But it is very humbling. Jiu-jitsu is.
So now you're a teacher and you've been running classes. What's that experience like, knowing the demographic of our school?
I mean, I love to teach. It was a little intimidating at first. I've taught in other areas of my life, but with jiu-jitsu it was a little intimidating at first, again, because it's all men, everybody's bigger than me, and man, I've gotten nothing but respect from the other students, and it's helped me be better at jiu-jitsu as well. If I can figure out the best way to explain things and walk people through, it makes my techniques better. Instructing has been a great experience, and I do hope that I can teach more women. I think it's a really valuable skill to learn, for sure. A lot of it is self-defense, like a lot of the value in it for a woman, especially if they don't want to learn to grapple per se. The value of jiu-jitsu is the self-defense aspect of it. However, man, I contend that probably the best part of jiu-jitsu for me is the mental exercise that it takes to do it. I mean, it's not just a physical workout. I mean, I have learned so much about the human body, and I'm a physical therapist. I mean, I know a lot about the human body, but I've learned, about how we move, about, the most efficient way to move, about balance, all sorts of different things through that. So, I think there's a lot more in jiu-jitsu to learn than just, the regular physical aspect of other sports. But I will say, as a woman, and especially a mom of two girls, that's probably the most valuable thing to me, is that I have learned how to protect myself, but also my children. And you can't put a price tag on that ever. And, there are situations, thank the Lord, I've never, been assaulted or been in a bad situation, but nobody's far from that. You always want to be ready, especially if you got little ones in the mix. So.
In fact, you had a close call at the park.
I did,
Near your own home.
Yep. So, yeah, some creepy looking guy, me and my daughters were the only one at a park, and he just started watching my kids. It freaked me out, and he followed me to my car. And thankfully, I mean, I knew some stuff then about jiu-jitsu, and I wasn't carrying a weapon or anything like that. I just had my two little kids, but my mind started going, okay, what do I need to do? I need to keep him away from my children. I need to stay safe. I need to get them in the car and get out of here. What's the best way to do that? And if he gets closer, how do I protect myself and my children? And I was able to think through that. Whereas, if you don't have any knowledge, if you don't have any clue on how to defend yourself, you can't think of anything to do until it's too late.
Although I know you were on alert, I would probably bet that you were not afraid.
Yeah, no, I was just, there wasn't really any fear. So.
Whereas I think a typical person might have some bit of fear in there, but that when that mama bear comes out, it's one that actually can defend yourself. Mm-hmm. And like I tell my daughter, and what I say for every woman, and I know I've had this conversation with Ginny as well, is that my hope is that nothing ever happens to you. But if somebody does decide to cross that line, you're either going to prevail, or if you do not prevail, they're going to wish that they had not even come near you, because something is going to get broken. And to me, as an instructor and as a father to my daughter, that's really the most that I can hope for, because I know that every attacker is basically a coward. They're not going to attack somebody. If I'm an attacker at 6 foot, 200 pounds, I'm not going to attack the guy who's 6'5", 240. I'm going to attack the female who's 5'6", 120, because I think there I have the biggest edge. So to me, it's important, and that's why I would really like the opportunity to have somebody like Ginny, and I have the opportunity to have her, but give her the opportunity, as well as me have the opportunity to help more women to get this. Now, she made a good point in that it's not the physical part, it's the mental part that really keeps her going. And there's a common term that we use in jiu-jitsu, and it's called mental chess. And because that's what it is, you have to be able to control your own feelings, control your body, control your opponent's body. It's all a game of control, and you have to maintain control over your opponent so that you can get your will done. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It doesn't matter if you're big or you're small. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. It doesn't matter who you pray to. On the mat, it's all the same. It's about control of your own body and control of your partner's body, or if it's an assault, your opponent's body. If people look at it in those terms, then there should be no gender barrier in jiu-jitsu, because on the mat, you're not a woman, I'm not a guy. We're just two people training and trying to get to the point where we can feel confident, where in a situation we can prevail. But in class, we prevail over each other, and it's all fun after that, and we can have a good time, we can have a party over here, we can hang out and be friends after that. To me, what I think is the most important, but to get people in the door, it helps to have somebody like Ginny who understands the inner workings of jiu-jitsu, of our academy, of our culture, to help spread that to other women, so that even if they don't absorb the school culture and all that, at least they have some tools that they can use when they get put into their situation at the park with their kids.
Just one last thing, probably one of the most valuable things that I've learned in jiu-jitsu, and this applies to life as well. I don't know if y'all have seen Ryan's video on the lobster, on how lobsters grow. And I know that sounds funny, but I'll probably never forget that conversation, because we had it when I was having a one-on-one lesson with him, and he's like, "Jenny, do you know how lobsters grow?" I'm like, "I don't know." I was really frustrated, not doing so well at the time, and he told me, they got to get uncomfortable, and they got to, to get out of the shell, to grow a new shell, they have to be uncomfortable. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, whether you're a man or a woman in jiu-jitsu, you're gonna be uncomfortable at times. But as long as you know that coming into it, and you can see the absolute value in what you're learning, I think it's great.
You have to have the mentality to embrace the discomfort.
Absolutely.
Most of us, we run away from discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so difficult for a person to get a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, because you have to make that transition. That's the hardest belt to earn, by the way. Just letting you know, right? Your blue belt was the hardest one. Everything else is going to get easier. But the reason why it's so hard and so difficult is because you have to flip many switches in your life, right? You have to make the time to do this new activity, and you have to be consistent. You have to do 2, 3, 4 times a week, or as many as you can possibly do. You have to do that. You have to deal with spouses, right? Especially if you're a woman in a studio with all men, or if you're a man who has women in their studio, right? Spouses who are not also involved in the art, they can kind of look at things a little differently from the way you're thinking it's nothing, but they are human and they'll feel something, and they have to fight on their end. And I've seen it many times where spouses end up pulling their significant other out of jiu-jitsu. Not physically saying you need to come, but by making life so hard for them that the only way for that difficulty to be relieved is for them to just quit jiu-jitsu. The whole thing about the lobster in the shell, if you don't subject yourself willingly to discomfort, you won't grow. And if you don't grow, you'll never progress. You're just going to get beat the same way you always get beat. And not beat as in beaten up, just beat as in you just end up on the losing end, right? And everybody wants to win. But the problem with jiu-jitsu is that you don't get better unless you lose. You have to put yourself in a situation to lose. If you only put yourself in a situation to win and you don't know how to lose, then you have no reason to progress, right? The lobster who's always comfortable will never shed his shell. Thanks for spending some time with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take care, y'all. Happy training.